Snoring is difficult, not just for those who snore, but for those who listen to those who snore. We're going to talk about this pestilence by night here on This Life. Welcome.
You know, snoring is a topic that always makes me laugh personally, because there's so many stories about people that just rip with snoring at night and no one can sleep. But it's not very funny if you're on the receiving end of it.
No. Okay.
Well, one of the things that I saw this week actually was we had guests come by, and I think I can say this because they won't be watching us. But
How do you know
how
that?
we know that? But they came by, well, we'll say 2 months ago then.
What, yesterday?
Yesterday. And they were staying with us, and we could hear them snoring all the way from their bedroom downstairs up to where we were. And I know snoring can really disrupt things, but it made our dogs bark. We could hear it. It was really surprising. I don't know how someone could sleep with that amount of noise.
Well, something that I reflected on this week was a friend of mine. We would spend a lot of time together singing and practicing, and we'd always try to all get to sleep before she fell asleep. Because when she fell asleep,
There was no
we
sleeping.
were not sleeping. But we learned to live with it. But, you know, snoring, as you said, it's, you know, my husband says I snore, but I tell him I don't know that I do because I'm asleep.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no one in my family snores. As I was growing up, my mom and dad did not snore. My sister did not snore. As far as I know, I did not snore. So a few months ago, it was about a couple of years ago, actually, not a few months ago, a lady who was going to share a space with me said, "I'm a snorer. Is that okay?" I said, "Oh, no problem." It was a problem. I said that the next night I would be happy to
Just sleep somewhere
to
else.
sleep somewhere else. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, our case today is about a husband and a wife who've been married for 4 years. It says, "We recently welcomed a set of twin boys to our family. It has been really gratifying, yet tiring as we adjust to our new life. Sleep has become a premium in our household. Between the crying babies and my snoring husband, I don't know what to do. He snores so loudly that it wakes up the babies.
Oh, no.
We live in a small house with 2 bedrooms. No matter where he sleeps, we can hear him."
So it's not just in my house that we can hear the snoring. That's tough to have someone snoring and keeping you awake. But not only that, but just when you get the babies to sleep,
Yes.
and then he starts snoring and
Yes.
everything starts. That's really bad. I can see why she's really upset by that.
Well, the stories, you know, I hear a lot of stories, people saying they will kick their spouse, and their spouse will say, "Am I snoring?" "Yes, you're snoring." "Okay." And they'll turn over. And then it's just a matter of time before they have to kick them again through the night to say, "You're snoring." I don't understand how that helps, to tell someone they're snoring.
Well, I wonder. I mean, I think you can say, you know, roll over, baby. You breathe better on the other side. Some people have.
Roll over so you can suffocate and I can sleep.
So you face, maybe they want to face away from you or something. Or maybe some people have a deviated septum in their nose, you know, the little partition in the nose, and sometimes it's deviated. And if they lay in a certain way, maybe they don't snore as much. That's my theory.
And there is kind of a tape. There's this tape. I saw this tape that
Yes,
you can
put it
tape
over
to your nose.
It helps you to breathe right, I think, and also helps to prevent the snoring.
Well, I shared a room once with a woman, and she said, "What is that on your nose?" And I said, "Oh, it prevents snoring." And in the morning, she asked if it had a money-back guarantee. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure it always works for snoring.
For snoring, okay.
Oh,
Well, I
this
know-
is tough though.
Yeah, this mom is
Oh.
very tired
Very tired.
because she has twins and a husband that's snoring. So, I mean,
That's a lot of
that's
noise
a
at
lot
night.
of noise.
And then when you lose sleep, I don't know about you all, but when I lose sleep, I'm not happy the next day. It's hard.
I'm cranky.
Yeah.
It's just not good.
It isn't.
Motherhood, I think, is hard enough.
Yes.
Without a
New
snoring
motherhood
husband.
without a
Yeah.
snoring husband like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is a new issue.
No. No.
No matter where he sleeps, we can hear him. I would guess he probably needs to be seen by his doctor and get some sleep studies. I know that that's what is done.
Now, that seems like a rampant thing right now, is everybody's going for these sleep study things, and they're coming back on machines. CPAP, I think it's called. Is that really the way people want to live? On a machine? I mean, I'm looking at you.
Tell us, Dylan. No, actually, I think, and I think this is, and most doctors will tell patients like this, if you'll lose some weight, because more often than not, it's people with a short, thick neck, and when your head goes back, you know, all of that kind of stuff, and then it's hard to have a good airway, and it's hard to breathe.
Well, I have friends who have gone on the CPAP machine, and they say the difference is astounding. But it's just hard for me to believe, because those machines make sound.
It's a whooshing white sound.
And I can't understand how it's any easier to sleep with a whooshing sound than it is a snoring sound.
Oh, I think it would be.
Is it?
Yeah, one of my family members has one of those, and I think it's a little bit easier. It sounds like you're kind of in a wind tunnel, but it's not that rhythmic snoring that can really be irritating.
Yeah.
But I know that if you have sleep studies, they'll hook you up to a number of electrodes and, you know, put some things on your chest, and then they observe you on video and see how many times you stop.
So is snoring then also an example of, is it just the snoring? Or because you said some of the machines also record when you stop breathing when you're sleeping. Isn't that something else? And that's called sleep apnea?
Oh, we're thinking of sleep apnea.
Yeah.
I think I did confuse that with just, I guess there's a garden variety snoring, and then there's sleep apnea.
Oh, so, right. So some people snore because they snore, and other people snore because they have sleep apnea.
Sleep apnea, okay.
Or because there's some sort of obstruction, or because of weight gain, you know, a lot of weight. As much, according to this, as much as 30% of people age 30 and above are snorers. 30%. So that means that one of us.
Are you asking
Not
for a
me.
show of hands?
When it comes to middle-aged people, the proportion rises to 40%.
Wow.
That makes sense. If we're talking, though, about obesity and overweight being correlated with snoring, isn't the weight problem in this country up to about 30 to 40% of people are overweight in this country?
Well, that's interesting, because it says 1 in 5 adults has at least mild sleep apnea. But what's interesting, and I wonder why this is, there's a ratio of 2 to 1 sufferers of snoring amongst men. So there are more snorers who are men than women who
I wonder
snore.
why that is.
Now, you know, some people might be wondering, why are you talking about snoring? I mean, it's just snoring. You know, does it really cause that much damage, you know, to people? It's part of life. Wake them up, tell them to turn over, and go back to sleep. You know, but the snoring does create risk. There are risk factors associated with snoring. One of the statistics here says that there's a strong link between loud snoring and both heart disease and strokes. You know, so it's not something just to push to the side. It's something to definitely assess and see what's going on.
Well, it strikes me that you're not getting the full airflow because there is something making that noise and obstructing, so you're not getting the full amount of oxygen. So it might not be obstructed like sleep apnea where you actually stop breathing, but you're not getting the full amount of oxygen to your brain.
It also raises the risk of carotid atherosclerosis. So it's not just a sound that we're talking about.
Right.
It's related to other things.
So for this mom, I guess I would say to her, check out what's going on with your husband. If he's not overweight,
Yeah.
you know, if he's not, if he doesn't have sleep apnea, we have to do some assessments to see what's going on with him. Maybe even trying that thing over the nose to see if that will work.
The other thing I would say was mucus producing liquids and things like milk can make snoring worse for some people, and maybe they need to talk to a nutritionist or a doctor about what foods would actually diminish that amount of
Well, alcohol,
obstruction.
caffeine, and heavy meals can increase snoring, as well as 10 pounds of weight gain. And finally, sleeping on your back.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You ever wake up with your mouth dry?
Yes.
And you think something woke me up and it was really
Right,
loud.
Right.
It's probably
It was like
yourself. Oh dear. Well, we have some email questions here. This sounds a bit like what we've been talking about in the case you shared with us, Dilys. My husband snores so loud that I cannot sleep. The real problem is that this has been going on for several years. I'm so sleep deprived that sometimes I would rather sleep in a different bed. Something has to change, but what?
Well, this person, if they're sleep deprived, then that means they're not functioning, well, or whatever they're doing, and irritable, and so that can't make for a very happy home. Now, outside of sleeping in another bed, I don't know if sleeping in the other bed is actually helping the situation.
Well, certainly would help sleep, but it doesn't help with the relationship.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yes, it doesn't.
Right.
But it shows you the amount of frustration in this person that she doesn't say I have trouble sleeping. She says I cannot sleep. It's been ongoing over several years. So I'm just trying to imagine that much sleep deprivation. I'm so sleep deprived that sometimes I would rather sleep in a different bed. So she's come to the end of her rope in a sense. That's a lot of frustration.
That is. I know a woman who married kind of late in life, and her husband snored just wildly. And I think for the first 3 years she couldn't sleep well at all. And she'd get up and go out on the couch, and she'd wake up and he'd be standing there and saying, "Are you mad at me? Don't you want to sleep in our bed?" She'd say, "I can't sleep," because she was a really light sleeper. And so I think there are times when that would really be tough.
Oh, yes.
Really tough.
Definitely. Here's another one. People tell me that I snore when I sleep, but of course, I've never heard it myself. I'm a little embarrassed by it, and I don't know what to say when they tell me this. What's a good comeback?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't have an answer.
So what is it?
I just know it's been hurtful to me. You go camping, you come out in the morning and you look horrible. That's the first thing. And then someone greets you with, "Boy, you sure snored last night." Well, what is a good comeback? Thank you. Hope you slept well.
I don't know that I have a good comeback either. What would be a good comeback to say to someone who snored?
"I'm really sorry. Maybe you should travel with earplugs." I don't know if that works or not. They might be more vexed with you.
Well,
I think if someone snores, I would say, I would wish that someone had just let it go. Who wants to hear that they snored?
Well, sometimes that's the only way you know you do.
Yeah, but who wants to hear it?
Well, no one does.
No one does. Either you know it and you're already taking that into account, or you don't know it and you probably don't want to know it right now. That's what I think.
It strikes me that if you know you snore, as a courtesy to people around you, you probably ought to give them some warning.
Some warning.
And say, I have a snoring issue. Would it be better if I got a different roommate for this trip? Or
Yes.
maybe you should bring
Yes.
earplugs or something like
Yes.
that.
The problem, now I'm interested, Barbara, you've talked about earplugs twice. The problem about snoring is it sometimes shakes the bed.
You can hear it through your bones.
You can
and
hear it through your,
The
you can feel the
vibration.
vibration.
Yeah.
I know someone
not sure.
when they go camping, they pitch their tent furthest away from everyone,
Yeah.
simply because they know they snore.
They scare all the
They-
bears away.
yeah.
And that's good, I think, to
Yeah.
take that into account.
Yeah.
And if you're not a snorer, sometimes you do snore at times like that because it's unusual. You eat too much around the fire.
Exhaustion.
Exhaustion. And
The bed's not so comfortable because you're sleeping on the ground.
the bed's not as comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think the person who does snore needs to let people know that they snore and even be able to say to them, "Look, I've tried everything, or I have something, or I'm trying something. I know it might be a little annoying to you. I'm sorry." Give you that whole pre-warning so you know what the evening might come like. Or they might do like some friends of ours did, go sleep early. You all go to sleep early so that you'll be in deep sleep by the time,
Yeah. But
I get it.
I do think that we're responsible. We need to be accountable for ourselves, and if we snore, to make sure that we've done everything we can possibly think of to make that diminished. Whether it means changing our diet or, sleeping on another side so we're facing away from the other person, or, going to sleep earlier or later.
That's very interesting, Barbara. I wonder how much snoring goes on in people who are either at their weight or a little bit underweight. We didn't get, I don't think we got statistics on that, but I'd be very curious because I'm guessing it's not nearly as much.
I don't think it's, I think you're right on that. I know that there are occasions where even young people have some kind of malformation in their adenoids or something, and they have terrible sleep apnea. But that's more the exception, I think.
Exception,
You're
yeah.
right. But I think even if someone, for example, has restless legs and they're like paddling
I
all
have
night.
That. That's terrible.
And it's like, if you try to sleep with someone who has restless legs, then you just start relaxing and all of a sudden they go with their feet and you're wide awake again. And I think that we have to be responsible and accountable for whatever we have. And if it means we need to stay way over on our side of the bed or do something or sleep somewhere else.
Let's talk about that just for a minute because that's another type of pestilence by night.
Sure
You
is.
just mentioned restless legs, which is a syndrome. I know I have it. My mother has it. It goes through the generations, I've finally discovered. But what that is where at a certain time of night, about 10 o'clock, your legs start getting just a little fidgety, especially if you're overtired. So when it gets to be 11, 12, and you haven't gone to bed, sometimes they can get so fidgety. So if you're in bed and you start getting that, you have to get up to walk around to deal with that fidgetiness.
To walk it off a little.
To walk it off a little. But you're probably wondering how this fits with snoring.
Just a little.
Just a little. If you have restless legs and you have struggled with this fidgetiness, and then you finally just get to sleep, and then someone starts snoring.
Mercy.
That's
That's
not
for
good.
No.
The only good thing about it is they're not being affected by your restless legs.
That's
Yeah,
true.
but I think we have to really pay attention to those things. That's
Yeah.
tough.
Are there health issues associated with snoring, or is it just what some people do?
I think we've addressed that in the various health issues that we've already talked about. The question is, do we take them seriously enough to deal with them? I don't think we do. I think instead of taking snoring seriously, we simply say, I'm a snorer, deal with it.
Yeah.
And I wonder why we don't take that more seriously, why we don't care more about the people who are around, who struggle with the fact that we snore.
Well, I think there it is. We don't care. I mean, that you ask the question, why don't we care enough more? Because we're not the ones being disrupted by it. If I'm a snorer, I'm asleep.
Yeah, exactly.
I am sound asleep. I am sleeping well. And here I wake up the next morning, you look blurry-eyed and like, well, what happened to you, babe? You kept me up all night. Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. Can't
You should have
help
woken
it.
me up.
You should have
right.
told
You should
me.
have told me. I did 10 times, and no
Yeah,
matter where you
yeah,
laid.
yeah.
So it's this sense of unless something kicks in and says, I don't want to see my spouse looking like this anymore. I don't want my spouse snapping at me. It really isn't.
But have you ever
something.
heard that? Have you ever heard someone say, I snore and it bothers me so much that it bothers others, I'm going to do something about it?
No,
I mean, I don't hear people
Not
talk-
terribly often.
no.
Not terribly often.
You don't hear that.
You
very
don't hear
much.
that much.
No.
Can I just back up and say something about some health issues? Maybe not with snoring, but with the apnea, or not even health issues, but ways you have apnea, which is the cessation of breathing. And that is that sometimes people with sleep apnea will get this deep fatigue early afternoon, and not just
midday.
because they had lunch, but just this deep fatigue almost to where they can't stay awake. And they might have times where they get up to go to the bathroom a lot of times during the night because they're not sleeping very deeply. They might have headaches in the morning.
There's also memory loss. They're
There's
quick to
memory
anger,
loss.
high blood pressure, even some nighttime chest pains.
And we
We
know
have-
that esophageal irritation from regurg is a problem too, more often. And I think you said high blood pressure.
High blood pressure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, one thing we haven't talked about, which is also sort of a pestilence by night, is sleepwalking. Have you all ever done that?
No.
I grew up sleepwalking. I had some wild escapades sleepwalking as a child.
Really?
Would you
I
like to
did.
share one of them?
Not particularly. No, but I can remember. Usually, it's when you're small and you're a child, and children have to get up to go to the bathroom during the night, and you get up and you're disoriented, and you're
Right.
not sure where you are, where
And you
you're
have a
going.
little voice that says,
Something's not right.
you are in a certain place, and another voice says, oh, no, you're not. Oh, yes, you are. And yeah.
Wow, you've had this experience.
Oh, yes. I actually only really sleepwalked once.
Okay.
I had taken, I was traveling, and I had taken Ambien.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't know it then, but I know now that one of the side effects of this particular medication is that you sleepwalk. And I woke up in the middle of Romania in a little village town, not knowing where I was or what
dear.
time it was of day.
Wow.
It was very scary.
Wow.
Wow.
And I hear people actually gain weight
Really?
on Ambien because they eat in the middle of the night and they don't know they've eaten.
Look at
Really?
that.
Wow.
Wow.
Maybe that's my problem. I don't take Ambien.
No, I only took it twice on that trip, but it didn't agree with me.
Huh. It's really scary. I know people have other things called sleep terrors. Another sleep issue is where they'll wake up and they'll have this, feel like they're paralyzed and frightened half to death and can't move. And I don't know what's associated with that, but that's another issue that some people have, especially with small kids. They'll have that.
Well, I was thinking that maybe this is what my daughter has, the sleepwalking issue, because she often gets up in the middle of the night, walks into our room, has a whole conversation, and then goes right back to sleep.
And doesn't remember anything.
No. Next thing, if we put her back in her bed, she'll say the next morning, I slept in my bed all night. Like, no, you didn't. No, you think you did.
You think
but
you did.
No, you didn't.
Well, associated with that too is sleep talking.
Yes.
And
Oh,
my
now
sister
that's
and I
scary.
used to share a bed when we were kids. And she's quite a bit older than I am, so she was a teenager, and she'd come to bed late, and it would disturb my sleep. And so I would immediately start this mumbo jumbo, and she'd ask me questions, and I would know that I was livid with her because she was having the time of her life, getting
But did
these
she ever-
bizarre comments
Did she
from
ever,
me.
did it make sense, or was it just,
It wasn't gibberish. It was,
Oh.
I would tell her all these long, convoluted stories
In your sleep.
that I had no recollection of, but I would wake up angry in the morning at her. So I knew that
you had given
I knew
away
I'd
your
been had.
I used to try to get secrets out of my sister like that.
Oh, really?
She would talk
You
in her
older
sleep.
sisters, I tell
Yeah,
you.
so I would go up to the bed and ask her questions, but she would just mumble back. I never got anything out of her.
Wow, these are hard things to cope with.
Here's another question. When I'm sleeping, sometimes I wake up with a start with the feeling that I've been without air and have just gulped down some air to preserve my life. It is kind of scary. What would be causing this?
Sleep
Sleep
apnea,
apnea.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. When people go to get their sleep studies, they actually have videotape of them sleeping, and some people will go without breathing for up to 45 seconds. And you can understand if you ever got your head pushed underwater, and when you come up, it's that kind of thing, and that's what people do when they're not breathing well at night.
Is
Pretty
there-
terrifying.
Is there anything good about snoring? I hope so, because there is no way I'm going to use one of those CPAP machines that I hear about. No way.
Well, then, I guess for this person, there's something good about snoring. But I don't know of anything technically good about snoring. Do you
I don't
of
know anything about that.
No,
It's not like you gain anything by snoring.
by snoring, absolutely not.
I think there's a lot to lose. I've heard that if you eat ginger, you will not snore. I'm in trouble then. I tried it myself and it seems to work. My wife says I'm imagining this. What do you think? Do you know anything about ginger and snoring?
I actually love ginger,
So do I.
but I've never heard or read that it's related in any way to snoring.
Snoring.
To calming the stomach, yes. But I've never heard that it was related to snoring. So I'm guessing, though, if it works even as a placebo, it's
And
working.
It's working. Body can
Keep
use
up the ginger.
So probably I know probably then just to pay attention to the kinds of things that you eat and that you drink, and that would make you fall into a very deep medicated sleep that would be problematic.
Well, I think what we've talked about several things is if you're a snorer, it's a good idea to think of losing weight to get at or a little bit below your weight.
to also we just said that, lose some weight, and also to do some sleep studies. You know, see if there's anything going on while you're sleeping that's affecting the way that you do sleep.
Sleep on your tummy,
Tummy and your side.
tummy or your side, not your back.
And tell people ahead of time if you're going to share space with them.
Yes, be responsible.
Be responsible.
Be a responsible snorer.
Yes, definitely.
That's good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Even try some of those over-the-counter things and start there and see if that's helpful.
And I think a point we're making is to care enough about other people to try to change your own patterns rather than always expecting them to account for your snoring.
Or you find you'll be sleeping alone.
Or you may be sleeping alone or taking ginger.
Or taking ginger. Yeah, I guess I can't emphasize enough that some of these things really need to be talked over with a doctor.
Yes.
Because there could be other things that this relates to, such as some kind of malformation or something that could actually cause people to have serious medical issues.
Well, there was one thing that talked about brain damage. Snoring and
Yes.
troubled nights could be a red flag for brain damage occurring while you sleep.
I know that
So-
there's a heightened incidence of dementia with people who
Right.
have sleep apnea, which I don't think any of us want. So if for nothing else, that would seem to me to be a good reason to get a good checkup.
They should also avoid alcohol, caffeine, and heavy meals, especially within 2 hours before bedtime.
Oh, now there's something we haven't talked about is eating late at night can
Oh, yeah.
increase snoring.
Yes, it can.
I think what we mentioned earlier was that esophagus irritation, the
Right,
reflux,
reflux.
and probably because people eat late at night, like you're
Right.
saying, and that when you're not sleeping as deeply as you'd like to, it just kind of sits there in your esophagus.
Now, there are some medical treatments that are found here. Radio frequency of the soft palate. They use a radio frequency to shrink the tissue in your throat and your tongue. So that has helped. They also have laser-assisted uvuloplasty.
Oh, that's changing the shape of your uvula.
Uvula. So I did say it right.
You
Uvula.
did.
Yeah, you did.
Yes, I feel pretty good. And of course, oral appliances and the great one that the guy said he would not do, the CPAP machine. So those are some treatments.
Wow, so sleep affects us all. It's something that we really struggle. We can really struggle with if we're not terribly vigilant to take care of ourselves, to take good care of our health, to make sure that we're in good shape. So we're talking today about sleeping, about the pestilence by night, which could be us. Take good care of yourself. Sleep well. See a doctor. See how you can sleep healthy. This is all we have time for today on This Life. Thanks for joining us.